Welcome all across the galaxy to the Recon Centre, the Q&A series for Star Wars Imperial Historian. Our first question comes from Daniel to Cypern, and he asks, will I ever do more videos fully about Legends? The answer to that is yes. I actually do have plans on doing Legends content since the start of the year. I have been weary about opening the floodgates, as there are major differences in the way the Galactic Civil War plays out in Legends compared to canon. I'll be more in favour of doing Legends material of stuff from before the Galactic Civil War and the Clone Wars. History from 100 years ago, possibly thousands of years ago. Stuff from the Old Republic era and the Recon Infinite Empire era and the start of the Jedi era in those comics from a long time ago. I'm more comfortable covering those legend topics because it's a lot easier for the in-universe style to dismiss them as legend or myth. Whereas if I was to talk about a legend subject in the Galactic Civil War in Legends, for example, the Battle of Camino in The Force Unleashed 2, with Kota and the Secret Apprentice, that's a bit more harder to say that's a myth or a legend, because it's in the current time period. It's a lot harder. It would be distinguished as either fact or false. So I'll be selecting my Legends videos and topics quite carefully, and I have been doing so for the last couple of months, and I have actually started writing scripts for Legends material. Daniel also asks, what Star Wars games do I play? So I play Star Wars Battlefront 2 a little bit here and there, and playing a round or two and logging off. It's gotten a lot better now that I've gotten rid of the star card system, and the microtransactions have made it a lot more playable now than it was when it released. Very, very silly. The story for it is subpar. Very disappointing the fact that the person you were playing didn't stay with the Empire or the First Order as long as we were led to believe in the trailers. That was a very big disappointment. If they just said it was going to be an anthology campaign where you followed multiple characters from different times of the Galactic Civil War, then that would have been a bit more bearable, and a lot of people wouldn't have been as disappointed as they would have been. But the game, I feel, is still pretty good. The multiplayer, I quite enjoy. I think it's Extraction. I quite enjoy that mode quite a lot. But since the game released, I've always been a big fan of the... what's it called? Starfighter Assault. The Starfighter combat in that game is wonderful, and I've been playing more of that than anything else. Occasionally, if I just want to play a couple of rounds and I have a choice of Starfighter Assault or Galactic Assault, whatever it's called, I always go to Starfighter. My favourite map is the Fondor map. The Fondor map, and also the... which one is it? I'm going to butcher the name here. The Couture map? The recently newer one, where it's the First Order and the New Republic, the Resistance, and they got those gravity well bubbles, which actually stop you from flying if you fly into them. And it's pretty cool, and it's quite cool to do some trick shots in there, and I love that mode. I love Starfighter Assault. But I must say, I consistently play Empire at War, a RTS from 2006. The modding community for that game is still strong to this day. I've played the Imperial Civil War Fraunt Revenge mod. That's fantastic, actually. They do a good job of they follow the legend story of the Imperial Civil War from Endor to before the Vong War, where you start off, if you're playing the Empire, I've only played the Empire in that game, you start off following the orders of the Grand Vizier. After you execute him or betray him, you then are under the orders of, I think it's Izzard, I don't remember her name. She's the one with the SS, the Super Star Destroyer, and she eventually unites the warlords of the Empire together. After that, you are then led by Thrawn, and then the Dark Empire, and then back to Captain Pidion's Empire. It's really good. I've had a lot of fun playing that mod. You should play it if you haven't. Another great mod is the Republic at War for Empire at War. It converts it's basically Empire at War, but you're in the Clone Wars. They do some things. They change the galactic map so there's more worlds and whatnot, and they change the combat. I believe they change the combat a little bit, but not that much. But it's different enough to the point where, I can play it a few times and really enjoy it. The setting alone is enough to play Republic at War. Now, the one I'm playing at the moment is Awakening of the Rebellion, which is currently on the 2.7 alpha patch on Steam. Awakening of the Rebellion is very hard. Every victory you earn in that game is earned. If you're playing, no matter what faction you are playing, you start off with not a lot of units. In fact, my only gripe with the game is that if you're playing the Empire, you start off with seemingly significant less units than the Rebellion and the Black Sun. I remember being attacked by the Black Sun quite frequently, while they had this big fleet, and the only reason why I was losing was because I only had a Venator-class Star Destroyer and an Imperial Light Cruiser. That's all I had in my fleet. And that's just starting off the game. Eventually, after mining and taxes and whatnot, you do grow your fleet, but it's a long, slow process to get that far. And by then, you've lost 10 systems and you are back to the core worlds, but then that's the big push you need. I'd say Awakening of the Rebellion is far more better if you're playing as the Rebellion in that game. It makes a lot more sense for the Rebellion to be down in the luck, to have not as much resources as this big massive consortium or the Galactic Empire. So it works in the Rebellion's favour, and that makes sense. And I have played it the Rebellion's way, and it is a lot of fun. I have thought about playing Awakening of the Rebellion on the channel, but I'm not quite sure whether to dedicate a schedule period on that or not. And I would like to play the Empire, but if I was to play it, the first handful of episodes would be nothing but me losing. Also, I should mention, and for disclosure, I am actually in Awakening of the Rebellion. I'm not in the released version just yet. I am in the 2.7 full patch, which comes out later this year. I don't know if it's going to come out later this year, but sometime in the future. They're doing they add more content to the alpha patch already, and whatnot, with more units and a lot of voice acting added into it. I voice an Imperial hero unit. I think it's a minor hero unit, because I never heard of this character before until I started researching him for the part, and that was Commander Orlok, who is this disgruntled Imperial commander who believes that he has been put in this position where he wants to do more than he can at the moment, but he wants to prove himself to the Empire, to the Emperor, and show that he is more than he is capable of at the moment. And so I played him a bit like Admiral Constantine in Rebels. I also play the Bovan Spy in the Rebel faction as a spy unit for the galactic conquest of that game. So look out for that when the 2.7 full patch comes out later in the year. And if you want to play the alpha version of that patch, you can do so on the Steam workshop. Now we move to a question from Captain George, who asks, what is my favourite Star Wars movie, TV show, and game to come out in the canon universe? My favourite movie to come out recently, apart from Empire Strikes Back, is the Solo movie. It may be because it's fresh in my mind, and I've seen it quite recently in the last handful of months. I really did enjoy it. Sure, there's a few lines I'm a bit like, well, that's... didn't need that in there now, did we? But apart from that, I really enjoyed that movie, and it felt a lot like an EU book, actually, in the way how it was designed, how the plot went on, and how we met characters, and just the fact that it wasn't this massive galactic battle. It was just a simple story of a down-on-his-luck smuggler on an adventure and learning from it and meeting friends along the way. And I really digged it. I'll never say that again. I've never said that in my life. That's me trying to be hip with the kids there. I really liked it. Not digged it. Jesus Christ. Got a bit out of topic there. But yeah, I really liked the Solo movie. And it's a shame it didn't do as well as the other movies. A lot of people would blame The Last Jedi for that, but I have to admit, I really liked The Last Jedi. A divisive opinion, I know, but I like The Last Jedi, and I'm going to end that conversation there. We do not talk about politics on this channel. Moving on, I also really love Rogue One. I love the third act. It's great. When I was doing research on it, and when I was getting screenshots for it, when I was doing my episodes about Krennic, the ships in that movie, and the battle at the end, I found myself watching the entire movie again and again and forgetting to screenshot. It was a lot of fun. It gave me an excuse to go and watch that movie loads of times. Also, The Force Awakens was great. I love that. It was a fun movie. I need to watch it again after watching The Last Jedi. I'll either watch them back to back, because I do think they're fun movies and they're enjoyable, and if you like them, you like them, and if you don't, you don't. TV shows, I like Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Rebels. My favourite does have to be Rebels, though. It has a more cohesive story, and you follow these characters throughout the 4 years of the Rebels TV show. Whereas don't get me wrong, I really do like the Clone Wars. However, the anthology style of it and its mismatch of like going back and forth in the timeline isn't as compelling as Rebels. And this is a minor pet peeve, and a lot of people might disagree with this. But I can't stand how the droids speak in Clone Wars. They speak... I know they're supposed to be comical in the Clone Wars series, but there's this one moment, I believe it's in the first episode, I think it's the Rising of the Maleficents, I may have butchered the name there, but it's when Plo Koon and his clone troopers are in the escape pod, and it's like this really dark tone of like these droids like killing, like mercilessly murdering these clone troopers. But while they're doing so, you've got this, as they're about to crush the life pod with this crusher thing which this droid is controlling, it's this really harrowing scene. But the droid on top of it is humming to himself, going do 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 do, and it just brings you out of the scene, and it annoys me, and it happens throughout the entire series of the Clone Wars. And I shouldn't get annoyed by it, but it does, you know. Apart from that, I really do like the Clone Wars, but I love Rebels more, and especially I will admit the first season of Rebels is a bit lackluster. But when you get to the second series, like the end of the second series, and the third and the fourth series, when Thrawn comes, it gets serious, and It is a lot of fun. My favourite episode of Rebels is 0 Hour, which is the episode when Thrawn attacks the hidden rebel base on Athlon. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. If you haven't seen Rebels, go and watch the 2 episodes called 0 Hour. It is great. It's very similar to how Rogue One plays out, especially with certain ships and whatnot crashing into each other. It is wonderful. I love it. Favourite character from the episode, apart from Thrawn, is John Sato. I did a video on him quite early on in my YouTube channel. He is pretty great in that episode. And video game, I kind of answered that question earlier on. Seeing that there's only really Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2. I'm going to say Star Wars Battlefront 2. Of course, you could say the mobile games which came out, but I don't play mobile games on my phone. They're just not fun enough. I don't want to commit time to playing a mobile game on my phone. Captain George also asks, what character would I like to see on the big screen? I would very much like to see Dr. Alpha on the big screen. I would love to see, in fact, a Star Wars movie what played off the style of an Indiana Jones adventure, and I think Dr. Aphra would be the best fit for that. She'd be sent to go and find this ancient artifact, and she has to stop the Nazis, in this case the Empire, from getting the Ark, or whatever the Star Wars equivalent would be. I would find that an interesting movie story to watch, and I'd have no problem watching that on the big screen. Also, Dr. Aphra is a fantastic character in the Darth Vader comic, and is very interesting in her own comic line. But I wouldn't want... See, I think Thrawn is done well enough in Rebels. If they just keep... I'm a big fan of Lars Mikkelsen, and I'd love him to keep playing Thrawn, so I'd rather keep him as an animated character than a live-action character. But I wouldn't go amiss if he was on the big screen or not. But Dr. Aphra is my final choice. Reese Ems asks, who is the most known Rebellion New Republic hero? I would say Princess Leia Organa, due to her political and military credentials, and her role in defeating the Empire. People like Luke, Han and Chewbacca, not so much. Most people by the time of Bloodline, which is a book set 5 years before The Force Awakens, a lot of people don't believe the stuff Luke did, like blowing up the Death Star with the Force, or defeating the Emperor or Darth Vader. Most of the Republic heroes and the Rebellion heroes are people like Admiral Akbar, Holdo, Dodonna, and Radis. Those people, generals and commanders of the actual army of the Rebellion, are those who would be remembered. I mean, in the Last Jedi, Radis is named... Sorry, the ship in The Last Jedi is named after Radis from the first battle of the Galactic Civil War. Princess Leia will of course be remembered, I think more due to the fact of her political career more than her military career. She also, her and Mon Mothma, as they founded the new Republic and whatnot, and Leia Organa being the princess of Alderaan, the only planet to be destroyed by the Death Star. I suppose you could count Scarif and Jeddah, but be completely destroyed. That's more... She'll be remembered for being the princess of that world, and she can carry that over to why things need to not go forward, and why we need a military and not demilitarize the New Republic, of what Mon Mothma wanted to do. Another question from Reese, and he asks, will you ever change the channel name to something to do with the First Order when I get to that time period? The answer to that is no. Changing the channel's name would mess with the analytics of the YouTube channel and actually put me lower in the search results and mess with the algorithms of YouTube and Google and whatnot. And it would also confuse people finding my channel. I also like to be uniformed in branding with Twitter and other sites. And, I mean, technically, Arthur Prowse is still an Imperial during the First Order, much like those Imperials who moved from the Empire to the First Order. They still regard themselves as Imperials, and people like Captain Kennedy and Vice Admiral Sloane, I'm pretty sure they would call themselves Imperials. It's people like General Hux and Supreme Leader Snoke and Kylo Ren. Those, not so much. Those didn't come from the Empire. Those came into the First Order quite late, actually. It is hinted that people like Kylo Ren didn't join the First Order until 5 years before The Force Awakens. So there's a big shift in power in the last 5 years in the First Order compared to the years of the Cold War since the end of the Galactic Civil War. And I suppose, let's say if I was to change the name, calling it, for example, Star Wars First Order Historian doesn't really have the same ring to it. Like I said, Imperial is a vague term. It doesn't have to be imperialistic. I mean, the imperialistic idealisms still continue forward into the First Order, so it still works there. Now, the next two questions I've merged together because the answer I have for them are very similar. And so Vader Ra asks, how did you come up with the idea of a pro-Imperial YouTube channel? And Scott Davis asks, what was my inspiration for the character Arthur Prowse? Now, these two, I've put them in the same answer because it intertwines. So, the pro-Imperial YouTube channel came after the character Arthur Prowse. Arthur Prowse was a character I had for a book I was writing about I suppose I did eventually, the plan was to publish it and hopefully have a book in the Star Wars universe like Pablo Hidalgo and James Asuno. Butchered his name there, but I'll continue. That's what I wanted to do, an aspiring author. So Arthur Prowse was not the character in the book that what he is now. The book follows the character, I believe his name was James, and he was a junior. He was a member of the Imperial Reclamation Service as a junior recruit, and he was being mentored by Arthur Prowse. And the idea of this book was being in the same vein of the Indiana Jones movie, where they would, they're the Empire, so it's from a different perspective, from that angle, where they would be searching for a hidden artifact or a lost artifact that the Emperor wanted, and they were sent off to go and find it, and whatnot. What would eventually lead to the archival system, which I have now for the YouTube videos. There is no inspiration for the character Arthur Prowse. He was a character I made up. But I suppose you could say it's very, very vague and very little, but when I first started the channel, I did my voice was inspired by Christopher Lee. In the pauses I make in those earlier videos, if you watch the first video of the Imperial Light Cruiser and a video now, you'll notice there's a lot of pauses in that video, as I wouldn't say mimicking Christopher Lee. That was just how I learned to speak. A long time ago, I actually used to suffer from a stammer, and I did performing arts at college, and my performing arts mentor, taught me how to speak a lot more slower and say my words correctly, because I used to say words really fast to the point where I'd be jumbling the words and end up stammering and ending up a complete mess. And so the way I speak now is an effect of how I've been taught to speak by my performing arts mentor, and it's just more clear to hear the words I'm saying. And Christopher Lee was one of the examples I listened to while I was in college and tried to mimic the way he talked, and eventually it grew off into its own thing, and it's how I speak now. Going back to the idea of a pro-Imperial YouTube channel, I've always had this idea of creating content which was based on, which was creating fake news or a bias in the media of this dictatorial state, forcing the media to say these things and keeping the public in line. A lot like how real dictatorships work and how the empire works. And for a long time, I wanted to see someone else educate law from a twisted perspective of an imperial, but no one else was doing so. And it wasn't until late 2016 I was having this idea of actually making I actually had that idea. It was also the time when I was writing this book, and I was researching law in my source books and Wikipedia and YouTube videos and whatnot. And because of my love of the Imperial Light Cruiser, I wanted to have that ship as the main ship in the story. I noticed there was no videos on it, and that was quite surprising to me, and I thought, oh, this is my favourite ship. It's not getting any love. I would like to show it some love. I'd like to expose it to people on YouTube. So I put the book on hold, because I already had the research written for the book, and used that in my first video, and implemented my research into a script for that first episode. And then I brought the idea back of a biased media and fake news into that video, and I created this video of the Imperial Historian of the HoloNet expressing propaganda of their new ship line, their new ship design and whatnot. And the only reason why that video exists and why this channel exists, I never created this channel for money. I mean, that would be lovely. I would love to do this full time. But I never went into this channel thinking, oh, I want to be a success. I want to be semi-YouTube famous. I want to be, that kind of thing. I made the channel because I wanted to see content which no one else was making. The reason why I made these videos is because I myself wanted to see them. And if I didn't make them, there was never going to be those videos anyway. So I said to myself, if I don't make these videos, no one else is going to. I think there's a big problem. I wouldn't say it's a problem in this world, but there's a lot of people say they want something, but they expect other people to do it for them. They don't expect to do it themselves. But if no one else is going to do it, why not you? Why not you create that content? Why not you make this product, create this service which is for the betterment of yourself and for other people? So I made this channel because I wanted to see this content. And I strongly believe, and this goes to anyone who is thinking of creating a video or their own videos on YouTube, to follow this rule I applied to myself while making a video. And that is to create something that you yourself want to see. You should watch the whole video yourself before publishing it. Because you can't expect other people to watch your content if you won't watch it and enjoy it yourself. I said it before and I'll say it again. I made this channel so I could have a video on YouTube that I wanted to see myself for many years. And now, a year on, other people enjoy this content too, and it surprises me how many people have never seen anything like this. Because it was just off the cuff idea I had. Like, wouldn't it be interesting if I added this extra element? And it's worked. You all seem to be enjoying it. I love making it. It's a lot of fun, and it's great. And I want to continue doing so. Now, our final question from Joshua Donford. And he asks, how did Arthur Prowse get picked to become an Imperial Historian? Now, as I said before, Arthur Prowse, the character Arthur Prowse, is based off a character from the book I was writing a couple of years ago. So he has changed a lot from the book to the now Arthur Prowse, the Imperial Historian, just to make a lot more sense for the YouTube channel and the Star Wars lore it has evolved in recent years. I'll just go through the basis because this has been a very long video. At a young age, Arthur Prowse travelled the galaxy with his mother and father, exploring archaeological sites across the galaxy, so he was into galactic history from a very young age and whatnot. During the Age of the Empire, Arthur Prowse focused on his studies, and by the time he graduated, he was recommended to join the Juniors program of the Imperial Reclamation Service. As years passed, and under the guidance of his mentor, the head of the IRS, Imperial Historian Arthur Prowse became a prominent member of the division. However, the Empire's need to expand the galaxy was not as crucial as keeping the peace and establishing its rule across the known galaxy. During a classified mission that would either keep the IRS running routine expeditions or disvalue the division and use the team as archivists, Prowse, his mentor, and a handful of IRS members discovered a peculiar artifact of what the Emperor himself was eager to obtain. The classified mission outcome is top secret, and not all those who had ventured returned from the quest. Arthur Prowse returned to Coruscant and took his mentor's place, in charge of the now depleted team of the Imperial Reclamation Service. Occasionally, the IRS were sent out on the odd mission or two. Sometimes it was to explore and loot hidden Jedi temples under the watchful eye of the Emperor's ministers, such as people like Varys Hayden from the Rebels TV show in The World Between Worlds. With civil unrest growing across the galaxy, the Imperial Reclamation Service were approached by Compnor to set up a service on the HoloNet to educate Imperial citizens of the history of the galaxy while feeding propaganda to the war effort. As time went on, the IRS was heavily inspired to promote Imperial propaganda and idealisms to improve the public opinion of the Empire and slander the Rebel Alliance. So that is a basic plot backstory of Arthur Prowse. He became an Imperial Historian because he was mentored by the head of the IRS, the Imperial Reclamation Service, and took over his place when certain events happened on a classified mission. Not because he was being mentored, not just because he was being mentored by the head of the IRS, but also because Arthur Prowse has enough credentials that he deserves that he's qualified for that position also. And now that the IRS is only a archival institute, it explains the fact that it explains the reason why they're publishing videos on the HoloNet, aka YouTube. So I hope I've answered all your questions there, and as always, thank you for watching, and may the Emperor's blessings bestow upon you.